All right, let's dive into something really deep today, straight from the Sovereign Archives. We're looking at a text called The Dialectic of the Abyss. And trust me, it covers one of the most absolutely mind-bending events ever recorded. So let me just start with this question. Imagine this. What if the very moment you became a god, the very act of gaining all that power, automatically created your own perfect personal devil, a being born from the shadow you now cast? Now, you're probably thinking that's just some cool philosophical idea, right? Well, the thing is, according to the archives, this is not a hypothetical. This isn't a story. It was a real, documented event. So, at the very heart of this are two figures, the sovereign king Glaucus and his necrotic reflection, the shadow. But here's the twist. They aren't just two dudes fighting. They are literally two halves of the same person, a single ego that was split right down the middle the second he became a god. Okay, so here's the crucial part. The text gets a little philosophical, but it basically boils down to a kind of cosmic physics. When Glaucus finally achieved his power and just declared to the universe, I am, a total, absolute yes, the universe itself had to balance the scales. It demanded an equal and opposite no. And this whole crazy process has a name, the Komoda phenomenon. The archives describe it as a complete structural rewrite of your very atoms. It's the trigger that forges both the god and its shadow, all in the same instant. And wow, this just perfectly shows you how different they are. For Glaucus, his transformation was this quiet, internal, brilliant moment, the silent realization that the entire ocean could be his weapon. But for the shadow, the part of him he threw away, it was a scream of pure nothingness, so powerful it literally bent light into a singularity. All right, let's break this down. First up, we've got Glaucus. He's the I, the absolute self. And for him, reality isn't something he just lives in. No, he sees all of reality as just an extension of his own will. And this is where it gets wild. The archives call him a hyper-cerebral sovereign. I mean, forget flesh and bone. His body is now a crystalline lattice that works like a single biological supercomputer. It lets him process the energy of the entire planet's oceans. He is so far beyond needing anyone's approval, it's not even funny. And get this, his powers, they look like magic, but the archives are clear, it's pure science. What they call phase shift sorcery is really just a tactical interface that lets him command the molecular bonds of H2O. Liquid, ice, vapor, he controls it all, giving him total control over the planet's water cycle. So this is where it all clicks into place. You see how his philosophy directly translates into his powers? His belief that he is the absolute I means he literally treats reality as part of his own body. When he freezes an opponent, he's just freezing what he calls the non-self. And that absolute idealism? It lets him look at entire countries and just dismiss them as sandcastles of the weak. But you can't have an action without a reaction, right? It's physics. The archives put it perfectly. The sheer force of his certainty, his being, created a vacuum. And into that void, the part of him he considered weak and human, something else started to take shape. A force of pure denial. And that force of negation, well, that brings us to the other half of the coin, the shadow. He's the non-I, the spirit who just says no. He is the literal echo to the king's first word, born from the deepest, darkest parts of Glaucus's own subconscious. And the shadow, of course, has his own philosophy, negative idealism. It's the polar opposite of the king's. For him, real freedom isn't about building yourself up, it's about tearing yourself and everything else down. His only goal is to dissolve all structure and return everything to chaos. And his powers, man, they are a twisted, terrifying mirror of the king's. He doesn't bother with the three normal states of water. He commands a fourth state. The archives call it hydronihilism, a burning, dead plasma that acts like a superacid, designed for one purpose, to erase the molecular bonds of existence itself. His weapons are just on another level of terrifying. He's got the black tide, a flood that doesn't just drown you, it erases your spirit. He has blades of frozen nothingness that don't cut your body, they cut your soul's connection to reality, literally wiping you from history. And everywhere he walks, physics and morality just stop. He's living proof that order is a lie. So, you can imagine what happens when these two forces finally meet. It's not just a fight. The archives have a name for it. the Dialectic of the Abyss. It's this eternal, perfectly balanced conflict between absolute opposites. To even the odds, Glaucus actually teamed up with Olympus, forming the Covenant of Thunder. He uses his water control to perfectly conduct Zeus's lightning. But here's the crazy part. The shadow doesn't block it. You can't punch the void. He just draws on the energy of the cosmic void and swallows the attack, turning all that power into nothing. Their entire conflict follows 3 basic rules. Number 1, for every yes the king declares, the shadow provides the no. Number 2, every attack based on order and energy gets absorbed by chaos and darkness. And number 3, the big one, the shadow's ultimate goal is to make sure that eventually everything falls apart. They are locked in a perfect, eternal stalemate. So where does that leave everyone else? The people living in their world. Well, they're caught in the middle. Their entire reality is now defined by this cosmic tug-of-war between total order and total chaos. And it really comes down to this simple, terrifying difference in perspective. Glaucus is the architect. He sees the world as his personal lab, something to be perfected and put in order. The shadow? He's the eraser. He sees the world as a blank page, and his only goal is to prove that anything written on it is a lie that needs to be wiped clean. This all leads to the archive's final, powerful conclusion. They call this new reality the two-folded Atlantis. It's a state of being where the absolute peak of godlike glory is forever chained to and hunted by the absolute pit of nothingness. You simply cannot have one without the other. So for everyone else living in this reality, the choice isn't about picking a side or deciding who's right. It's about pure existential survival, trapped between 2 impossible forces, one who demands we learn to breathe underwater, and another who seeks to ensure there is no one left to breathe at all.